In the mountainous regions of Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, and China lives a very special group of people known as the Hmong or the Miao, depending on which side of the river you talk to them. They are one of the largest and most widespread ethnic minorities in Southeast Asia, and their unique cultural traits have allowed them to maintain their identity for many years. Even though the Hmong people have lived in the region for hundreds of years, surprisingly little is known about them because they only recently emerged from hiding. Until now, the earliest written record we had of the first arrival of the Hmong into the mountains of Southeast Asia came from a 19th century French missionary named Paul Bigondet. According to his writings, the Hmong originally came from the north, fleeing persecution by the Chinese government. When they entered the mountains of Laos, there was already another ethnic minority living there, called the Dhau, who were later renamed to the Aka. The two groups shared a common ancestor, but split into different paths centuries ago when the Hmong people migrated south and the Aka stayed put. However, this theory has always felt incomplete to me. It doesn't explain why the Hmong would have left their ancestral home, or why they all seem to remember coming from the same place in northern Laos. Recently, however, scientists were able to use modern technology to shed some light on the mystery of the Hmong origins, and it turns out that they have been living in the region much longer than anyone imagined. To understand this incredible discovery, let us take a look at how the Hmong people became so skilled at hiding themselves in the mountains. The Hmong people are true masters of disguise. Just like the infamous chameleon, they adapt to their environment, making it difficult for outsiders to know what they are thinking, and even harder to figure out where they came from. This skill of theirs can be traced back to ancient times, when they were first pushed into the mountains by outside forces. You see, for thousands of years, the Chinese have ruled over the lowlands with an iron fist. And whenever they heard of a group of people living in the mountains that didn't pay taxes, it would send soldiers to bring them down and force them into labor. Over time, the Hmong people learned that the only way to escape the grasp of the Chinese was to move deeper and deeper into the jungle, away from the roads and villages. There they could hide among the trees, blending in with the lush green surroundings. With no roads or trails, it was impossible for outsiders to find them, which gave them the freedom to live their lives without being bothered. In fact, it was so effective that the Chinese gave up on trying to find them and just let them be. But here's where things get interesting. After disappearing from the lowlands, the Hmong people still needed a way to get food, so they did something amazing. They befriended the animals. Using their knowledge of the jungle, they created traps and snares to hunt for food and clothing. This way they could survive in the wild without being seen. At night, they would sleep in tree houses, high above the ground, out of reach of any predators or unwanted visitors. Life in the mountains was hard, but the Hmong people were determined to make it work. They developed a strong connection with nature and learned to use the resources around them to their advantage. This lifestyle became a part of their culture, passed down from generation to generation until today. Even though the world has changed a lot since then, the Hmong people still value their independence and freedom above all else. And that's why they are still living in the mountains of Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, and China. That we've talked about how the Hmong people adapted to life in the mountains, let's take a look at what secrets they have managed to keep hidden for so long. For centuries, the Hmong people have lived a secluded life in the mountains of Southeast Asia. They've managed to keep their history, language, and traditions alive despite attempts from outside forces to erase them. But how exactly do you keep your history alive for generations without writing it down? Well, the Hmong have a unique way of doing it. See, the Hmong people are known for their beautiful silver jewelry. Each piece tells the story of an entire family tree, passing down from generation to generation. The intricate designs and patterns are not just decorative, they are a way to remember and honor their ancestors. For example, the Hmong women's long necklaces are made up of individual pieces that represent important events in their family's history. These pieces are often given to the woman on special occasions, such as her wedding day. The Hmong also have a tradition of tattooing their bodies with patterns that tell the story of their life journey. Each tattoo is a reminder of important moments, battles fought, and victories won. This practice is not only a form of self-expression, but also a way to pass down family history and cultural knowledge. By keeping these traditions alive, the Hmong people have been able to keep their history alive without writing it down. It's a remarkable feat that has allowed them to preserve their cultural identity for generations. However, there are other ways the Hmong people kept their history alive. One of the most impressive aspects of Hmong culture is their oral history tradition. Without written records, the Hmong have relied on stories and songs passed down through generations to keep their history alive. These stories often involve mythical heroes and important events in their past, and they are a way for younger members of the community to learn about their heritage and culture. In addition, Hmong elders play a crucial role in preserving their history. They are responsible for passing down knowledge and traditions to younger generations and ensuring that the Hmong people do not forget their roots. Despite the challenges they have faced, the Hmong people's commitment to preserving their history is truly inspiring. So what kind of technology did scientists use to uncover the Hmong people's secret? Well, it all started with a question that scientists have been asking for years. If the Hmong people came from China, why don't they look or speak like the other Chinese groups? To answer this question, scientists turned to a field called genetics. By studying the DNA of the Hmong people, they were able to compare it to other groups in the region and see if there were any similarities. What they found was surprising. Hmong people's DNA was more closely related to the Aka people, also known as the Dhau, than it was to other Chinese groups. This finding suggested that the Hmong people may have been living in isolation for much longer than previously thought. But scientists wanted to dig deeper. They knew that if the Hmong people came from China, they should have some genetic similarities to the Han Chinese, the largest ethnic group in China. But the results of the DNA tests showed otherwise. The Hmong people's DNA was completely different from the Han Chinese. This finding suggested that the Hmong people did not come from China at all. Instead, they must have evolved separately from other human populations in the region. This discovery has revolutionized our understanding of the Hmong people and their place in history. It suggests that they are one of the oldest living populations in Southeast Asia, and that they have been living in the region for thousands of years. Another piece of evidence that supports this theory comes from linguistic studies. Researchers have analyzed the Hmong language and compared it to other languages in the region. They found that the Hmong language is part of a larger language family that includes the Tai-Kadai languages spoken by groups like the Thai and Lao people. This suggests that the Hmong people have been living in the region for a long time, and that they interacted with other groups. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from archaeological findings. Researchers have discovered ancient artifacts in the mountains of northern Laos that date back thousands of years. These artifacts include tools, pottery, and other objects that suggest that humans have been living in the region for much longer than previously thought. Taken together, these scientific findings suggest that the Hmong people have been living in the mountains of Southeast Asia for thousands of years. This is much longer than previously thought, and it challenges the traditional narrative that they only recently fled to the mountains to escape persecution in China. Instead, it suggests that the Hmong people have always lived in the mountains, and that they have a deep connection to the land and the natural world. As we continue to learn more about the Hmong people and their history, it is important to approach their culture with respect and sensitivity. The Hmong people have faced a lot of hardship throughout their history, including forced assimilation and persecution. Yet they have managed to preserve their language, customs, and traditions. That is something to admire. By learning more about the Hmong people and their culture, we can better understand the richness and diversity of human cultures and appreciate the resilience and adaptability of the Hmong people. We must ensure that their voices are heard and their rights are respected. By working together, we can create a world that celebrates diversity and promotes understanding and respect among all people. Thank you for watching. See you next time.